I got started a couple minutes late. I got a phone call at the last minute, so my bad. So I set this one up thinking I was going to have something to say, and then I kept drawing a blank. And I was like, well, I can cancel, but then I cancel. Well, I'm good to my word. Or I can just get on here and try and make the most of it. We'll see if this ends up being garbage or not. So, God, if there's something I've been missing all week, let me know. Otherwise, I'm just going to sit here and choke. One thing that's been on my mind lately that I've heard from a couple other people. When God just shares stuff with me, I don't really like making a big deal out of it for a while. I like to just stew on it, let it incubate, and then just kind of see how things play out, how things develop. What are these other people saying that claim to hear God? And sure enough, a couple other directions, a couple other people have been saying stuff similar, like things are changing soon, and to be ready, to be prepared. And then another guy, it's like, hey, this ain't going to look like how it's looked all along. It's going to be new means, new methods. The old ways of doing things are going away. They're being done with. And I just see how that correlates with stuff God's been saying to me. And it's just, that's one reason I just really, really enjoy talking to people that either aren't Christian or don't go to church. Because they don't expect you to hear from God the same way they do, because they don't. Read stuff God says to other people, and depending on the circle, a lot of these circles full of different people all sound like they're talking like they're the same person. It's like, what God's trying to build here is more like a stained glass window. There's going to be a bunch of different shades that all make one big, elaborate picture. We're not supposed to all sound the same, or look the same, or talk the same, or be the same. It's this weird religious fear in it. Like, every once in a while, I'll just be minding my own business, and I'll just hear something inside. I can't tell if it's a thought, or if it's God, or if it's something else, or what's going on. So usually I'll just kind of stew on it for a while. And I've been thinking it's time to pick up and move out of Tulsa. But I figured that was just because I was tired of the people around here and all the churches. And just ready for something new. I started getting too comfortable. And then started thinking about Salt Lake City, Utah, about 15 hours west of here. Side note, I was reading that a lot of people all over the world talk about distance, like in terms of mileage or kilometers, except Americans. Well, if we're trying to relate to Europeans, we're not going to talk about miles. I mean, if it's, 800 miles away, what's that going to mean to somebody that's not familiar with the system? So may as well go with hours. Anyway, Salt Lake City is like the origin of Mormonism. That's where their guy got all these revelations. So I was just kind of feeling it out. I was asking some questions on Reddit of like in stuff to do with Utah, to do with Salt Lake City. Just asking questions about the climate and the housing, the people, you know. And there's a few people that were super helpful. And then I was kind of feeling it out with them, just being cool. I was like, hey, do all the Mormons make it kind of weird? Because I grew up with a bunch where I lived. And one of them was like, well, actually, I'm a Mormon. But it was a funny comment. Did he make it a little weird? Anyway, that's just one of those things I'm thinking on, not saying God's sending me tomorrow or anything like that. Just stuff on my mind. But talking to these people, they were Mormon, not really religious, and we talk about talking to God. So they, just in the course of getting to know each other, we talk about stuff we're dealing with. And, I talk to God. I ask for help and for strength and for blah, 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 and piety. I say, wait, you ever talk to him just like you're talking to me? Just like a friend? Oh, no, I do. I ask for help and strength. And just looking back on how I got into Christianity with the people side of it, not with God. And a lot of it was focused on how people will judge you. Are you holy enough for people and you good enough for God? Never mind what's going on under the surface. And that is not what it's about. Talking to these people, man, I don't care if they're Mormon or not, if they're Christian or not. I want to make sure that they get introduced to God. I don't have to let them know that they're a terrible person or they're going to whatever. It's like, hey, you know what, dude, this is how God helps me. This is what God's done for me. He'll do the same for you. I'll help you get there. I'll introduce the two of you. You can be best friends. I don't know what's wrong with having that approach. Not making sure we all know how much we suck and what terrible people we are before we're good enough for God. Hearing somebody talk about what God said to them in their prayer times, how it's a time of breaking out of old traditions, out of old routines, old ruts. And it's going to be new, lots of new things, new ways of doing things. Then I just got started thinking about Jesus, how he introduced himself to all these people. So he's in Nazareth. I'm just pulling out Luke, and where did I start? What is that? 16, Luke 4. So he came to Nazareth, where he'd been brought up, and, as was his custom, went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day and stood up to read. And he was handed the book of the prophet Isaiah, and when he'd opened the book, he found a place where it was written, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to set at liberty those who are oppressed, to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord." Then he just goes and sits down, but everybody's still staring at him. You get this idea, he's in this crowd just looking around, being the center of attention, just as like a byproduct of what he said. And then he's like, "Oh, yeah, that's today. That's me. That's today." All these people, everybody bore witness and marveled at the gracious words which he'd spoken. And then they're like, wait, this guy's just a carpenter's kid. There's nothing special about him. So then Then he goes on the warpath. And he starts talking to them. You'll surely say this proverb to me, physician, heal yourself. Whatever we've heard done over in the non-religious side of town, in those counties, do here. Do among your people, among God's elect. And then Jesus said, surely I say to you, no prophet's exception in his own country. But I'll tell you, many widows were in Israel in the days of Elijah, when the heavens were shut up 3 years and 6 months, and there was a great famine. But none of them Elijah was sent to, except this heathen woman, this backslidden chick. There were many lepers in Israel in the time of Elisha the prophet. None of them was cleansed except this Syrian guy, not even a Jew. So then these people got all upset with him and kicked him out of town and let him do a cliff, and they were going to push him off. And he just walked right through and went back to minding his own business. Like reading through the Gospels, you can see all kinds of examples of how he would say something and people were just taken aback. Like, well, this is new. I haven't heard this ever. And they start giving a stink eye to the scribes and the Pharisees because they didn't know how to be free before. And then Jesus comes along and it's like, oh, hey, it's through me. This is how we roll. He just like left this wake of liberty behind him, of grace, of hope, of light at the end of the tunnel. And that's what I've been aspiring to. Speaking of aspirations, good news. After that last talk, I don't know how, but I finally managed to pull a figurative stick out of my butt. Like, it's just, all of a sudden didn't feel like I was so involved in things. I could just look at it from a more neutral perspective without feeling so invested. I say, is this how people stay so happy? Because I've said enough about how I dealt with a lot of things just on my own. So I didn't want to trust myself too much and then be one of those weirdos that just goes off the deep end. And I didn't know how to really commit myself to other people because I didn't trust them much either, because I had my fill of doing things their thoughtless, traditional ways. So I just had this really, really, really short-tempered regiment. Like, hey, this is how it's going to be. This is how it's going to fit. This is how I'm going to do things. Don't mess with it. And somebody messed with it. They found out that I was serious. Not really the most godly thing, but it was like having a cast. You know, it's not ideal, but it's something just to keep things set in place. So it's like I finally made it past that. I finally got to take the cast off and be myself. When I was 3, I broke my femur. I was in a body cast for 6 months, like full body cast, like I was permanently in the squatting position. I could move a lot more freely when that cast came. So for like, I don't know, a week or 10 days, I was on this honeymoon period with God where nothing was going to get me down. I'd start making some kind of a snide comment or something, then I'd just feel dirty inside. I didn't like it. I just said, God, I don't like that. What happened? How come I feel like scum after I say something like that? Well, it didn't really have much to do with God. And that was where I was wanting to be. And I knew I was taking a step away from God, from where I wanted to be. So, man, I was just looking forward to these opportunities to just see how much different I'd gotten to be. And then all of a sudden the honeymoon period ended. I had to start putting some more effort into it. Realized it was not quite as easy as I thought. It's like downloading some software, you know, you just get a a demo, a little trial version. You're like, hey, this is pretty cool. And then all of a sudden you realize it's going to cost $300. And then you got to question, how much is this worth to me? So I kind of bounce back and forth between old Pete and new Pete the last week or so, but I can see where I need to go, and I'm trying to get there. I just don't want to do it the way I've seen religion do it. I never did like jumping through hoops. Not for people. For God, it's a lot easier because I know He's the only ulterior motive He has for my own. But never liked doing it for people, and that's actually made a lot of things more difficult. Believe it or not. And sometimes there's just my pride, not wanting to be pushed around for something so frivolous, and sometimes it's legitimate. But either way, I usually start losing sight of God when I feel like I'm getting bullied or strong-armed into something. Then I just start going feral. That's not good either. But we're all in progress. We're all learning. One of my main goals is to be able to give hope to people. To be like Jesus, just have a wake behind me of people being able to see light at the end of the tunnel, being able to realize that they can come out of whatever's been bothering them, been holding them down for years and years. So I can be like, there's no not dumb way of saying it, so just play along. Just like what Jesus was, a physical manifestation of hope, of God. That's my goal. God, I ain't there yet, come on. But it kind of sucks getting to know people and they're so used to being used. Somebody comes along and just wants to be good to them. And all they are is paranoid. That's actually the biggest reason I don't like just running around announcing I'm a Christian, because then all of a sudden people get put on edge. I mentioned before, I was hanging out with, I went out with a couple coworkers and they had a couple friends, and it was just like this little restaurant bar. Just hanging out one night, and I'd known one of the friends for a little while, and then a few of them were just strangers, but we were having fun, just joking around. And then this one coworker's friend that I was kind of acquaintance with, she just went on to announce that I was a Christian. You could see these people's walls go up. That is not how it's supposed to be. If getting God across to people means being in stealth mode, then is what it is, man. Doesn't mean I gotta hide anything from God. But like I said, we're all in progress. I don't want to get too judgmental about this stuff I'm still dealing with, because then God's not shy about setting me straight, and that's usually through other people, because I'm too far gone with my pride for Him to get it across to me. I do not like being in that position, not at all. But it's worth it to work through that initial discomfort of coloring outside the lines, of being outside the mold, of breaking expectations, just so you can stick with God, not so you can keep God in earshot or within sight or just barely within arm's reach while you're playing hopscotch in contemporary and social expectations. It's about just completely foregoing the hopscotch board and the expectations and just giving God a big hug and skipping down the road, arm in arm. That's what it's about. Let God be your anchor, man. Stuff doesn't get to you like it used to. You find a security you don't get from other people's approval. You find the kind that doesn't just disappear until you earn it again. I think what hurts the most for me is just getting lumped in by all these burnouts, getting lumped into church person, the same kind of person that drove him away from church in the first place, from God, from even exploring the avenue of who God might be in Christianity, about Jesus. Because a lot of them, you can see in their eyes, man, their fake smile. They're in a prison too. They run out and minister. All they're trying to do to proselytize is, hey, my prison's better than yours because I have a support group. Okay. Well, I don't know why I would just trade this prison for a new one. But God's a whole lot different than that. It's worth it. It's worth confronting all the questions. Because then at least you got answers. Anyway. Guess that's enough for this time. So, love you guys. Peace.